The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Whether you're new to sales or a lifetime veteran, the Blackbelt Sales Podcast will sharpen your sword and guide you to master the art of sales. And now, here's your host, the ninja himself, Gene Slade.
Welcome back to the Blackbelt Sales Podcast again. Hey, we appreciate you joining us as always. I've got my main man, Don Johnson, in the booth with me this morning. Say what's up, Don.
Good morning. Good morning, Gene. Thank you. It's a great day and getting excited. Let's get with this topic. How do we price jobs? Isn't that exciting?
Man, that's something that a lot of people struggle with, not just contractors, but technicians inside of a business, right? They're not always given the proper tools to be able to come up with pricing even on their own, right? So they've got to call into an office. It just delays things. They got to wait. They got to get parts. It's kind of crazy. And
Right.
Fortunate for me, I was involved with a company when I was a sales manager and general manager that trained on all of that stuff. So I got to see under the hood, if you will, on a pretty good sized company that had like 50 employees. Today, that's probably a $15 million or so company. And Don, I know that you owned an 8-figure company yourself, so nobody better to talk about this than you. And can we let's break this into a couple segments. I'd really love for you to take on the equipment side of it. Let's say for maybe an HVAC contractor or this wouldn't apply to probably roofers, this conversation, but electrical, maybe even plumbing, high dollar equipment type of stuff.
Sure.
And
Right.
then maybe I can jump into some of the smaller service pieces, for people that are going out there and fixing certain things at customers' houses or doing maintenance on houses and things like that. So let's start out with equipment. Like I'm out in the field, I see a system that's down and I need to come up with a price, and I call my supplier and I find out that it's about $5,000 in total for my cost of goods sold. So first, will you explain to me what is cost of goods sold? And before you do that, guys, if you're watching this live, will you please put live down in the comments for me? If you're watching replay, will you put replay in the comments? And then last but not least, just tell me where you're checking in from. What part of the country are you checking in from? We would love to know that. So Don, what makes up cost of goods sold, or COGS, as some people might call it?
Yeah, the accounting people love that. It goes back into your filling out your tax return. It'll ask what was the cost of goods sold. That's where all that came from. But it's accounting terms. But essentially, it's all the stuff that we have to pay to get and do a job, right? So it is the equipment. It is the parts and pieces. It is the sales commission. It is the install labor, whether you call it a commission or a performance pay or hourly pay. And then you might have a permit, or you might have the little stuff that typically the last of the stuff is little small items that you don't have to dwell too much on, because it's going to work out very, very close. But cost of goods is everything it takes to get and do the job.
So I got to jump in here because, and this is fantastic, because you and I are actually not even on the same page right now, because I've got it broken down just a little bit further. I call cost of goods sold any sort of material or any sort of thing that we have to buy, and then I take the commissions and the install labor, and I actually call that cost of sales. It's what it actually costs to sell the job. So this is going to be interesting. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I like to say everything. The old school world, we called it above the line, right? That was above the line.
That's right.
And why was it called above the line? Because in the old days, all the stuff, they had a long line and across a piece of paper. Everything that went into the jobs went above it. Everything that was overhead went below it. And it just became that old mentality of above the line, below the line. And you'll debate, where does this go, above or below? whatever it takes to get and do the job, it goes above the line, or it goes into the cost of goods in my mind. Now, you do have subcategories: equipment.
Well, hang on. Let's not get too deep into that real quick, because we're getting complicated real fast. And for technician mind like mine, I'm not the accountant guy, although I'm good with numbers, right? Guys,
Right.
I want you to imagine listing all of the different things, like at the top of a job, the total sale price, and then everything that it costs, right down to the secretary's labor for that job. All of that stuff is listed as a minus below it. And then at the bottom, the very bottom, you get what your actual profit is. But this line is somewhere around the middle of the paper that Don's talking about. And that line, everything above it is the cost of goods Don was talking about. All the parts and pieces, the labor, and the commission. And then beneath that line, that is, if you subtract those cost of goods, that's going to give you your gross profit. And then underneath that line, there are more expenses, right? Overhead expenses, typically fixed and variable expenses. And then there's another line down at the bottom of the paper, Don, right?
That is real profit, or the remaining profit.
The net.
The net. Yes.
Your earnings before.
They love that EBITDA word, right? If you ever had anybody come in to value your company and talk, they throw that EBITDA out there. Earning, and the
EBITDA
letters
mean?
EBITDA, EBITDA. That's how it's spelled out. Earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and accumulation, or amortization.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, that's what EBITDA is. And essentially, it's the profit on our books before we worry about all the stuff we do for tax return purposes, right? It's the profit from the operations, not our tax return profits. So,
and just so you guys know, Don did all of his own taxes and stuff for an 8-figure company, so he really does know what he's talking about.
Well, I think as a business owner, you have to know where every dollar is spent in your business. It's your decision to spend it there, and it's neither right or wrong where you spend it, but it should be your control and your decision for it. So that's where you have to know every line item on a P&L, profit and loss statement, that you get from your accountant. You have to know what went into that number. And if you can't really answer it, then you really haven't done your work yet. You need to know where everything goes for what you spend. But let's get back to our cost of goods, the above the line items. One of the easy measurements that, even though I have to count in my commission and my install, all of that stuff is set. It's a percentage of the job, very typically for us, right? Even if you look at averaging your labor over a year, it's still going to come out to be about 10% when you're pricing very well to install the work that we do. Our commissions ran 7.5%. So we knew we had, call it 18% in those two numbers. So it really just boiled down to what was the material and what was the equipment was left. Those varied the most on every job, but the other two were pretty much the set as a percentage. They might be different dollars, but as a percentage, they fell in the right category, the same category all the time. So easy measurement for us. If we had to go buy $5,000 worth of equipment, I'm setting two numbers in my head right now, and that is that cost at 25%.
Okay, so you want the equipment to be approximately 25% of the total sale amount or gross revenue.
Exactly. It's 25%. Now, I can do that. You can get a calculator and you go 5,000 divide by 0.25. That's the real math.
That's $20,000.
But I also know that if I just multiply that by 4, I get the same math, right? So for in the field purposes, I don't want you to have to think in terms of get a calculator divided by 0.25. It's just the equipment cost with its tax. If you have to pay tax, I counted my tax, times 4. That was my number. Now, in this math, that'd be 20,000. I would have never priced a job 20,000. It would have turned out to be $19,887. I would have set that number to be something a little more market friendly and not And I tried never to let my numbers work out to be even 10,000, 12,000.
19,887 just looks so much better than 20,000 on paper.
A lot of our numbers ending at 87. And if I could tell you, do one thing, just round all your prices to that they end in 87. Even if it's going up, it's easier to sell, 19,887 than it would be to sell 19,400. It's really crazy.
Justin Chambly says he loves them 87s at the end.
Yes. Thanks, Justin. That is pretty great. Awesome. Yeah, he'll see his price book. He'll see his price book is loaded with them because I know Justin getting to know him better and better. But yes, awesome. The 87 would be in there, and you can raise. You would think I got to lower my price to get to the 87. Not always. I could have said 20,687, and that still would have sounded better than 20,000 even, right? Mm-hmm. So that's my first number. My second number is setting my equipment cost at 33%. Okay. 33.3 technically, but 33%. Yeah, I can take my calculator out, take the number, divide by 0.33. It'll give the math. But again, easy for us.
What is this for again?
This would be a second number if I'm setting kind of a range for equipment cost. Okay. So 0.33 would be my worst case. I'm not taking any lower than this kind of.
So you want it to be 25% of your gross revenue, but worst case scenario, I'm walking away from this job 33%.
That's right. I'll still take that job all the way to the point where my equipment costs are 33. Now I'm going to try to find some other things to help offset it. That's a different discussion, but
so in this scenario, I would divide by 0.33 or multiply by 3.
Exactly. And that's why I've set that number, because I can do multiply by 3 in my head much easier than I can divide by 0.33 in my head. So guys, right?
A reality check here. Reality check for all of you out there. And you don't have to say yes or no. I'd encourage it in the comments, but like, are you buying $5,000 worth of equipment right now and charging less than $15,000? That is the minimum walk-away number if you want to build a business. And I have to remind you, if you might say, I'm a small business, stop saying that, number one. And number two, you will never become a big business charging what you're charging right now. You've got to charge a minimum, in this case, of $15K, on the upper end, $20K if you can get it. Right. And it's better. You can always go down, right, Don? I mean, isn't it better to start at 19,887, like we said? And then if we're feeling weak in the knees or something, we've got some rebates or some discounts or some fast action discounts, or get our guys off the bench type of discount.
Certainly. And there's lots of those reasons to take that discount in the marketplace, fill in the schedule. I like all that. But I know that 15 in this example, 20 is my high, 15 is my low. That's a big range. I get that. It's a little large, but again, this sets us up to know that, okay, here's my worst case. Now, if you can sell the job for 15, don't start at 15, because that's what guys will do. They'll hear this and they'll go, oh, I'll price at 15. When you mention the price, and we don't say price, it should be printed, written down on a piece of paper. But when we present a price, it's going to be a shock. It doesn't matter if you put 15 on the piece of paper or 20 on the piece of paper. Oh my God, it's going to be a shock. So if you use that lowest factor, you've got no room to go. You've got to figure out how to talk them up, so to speak, to where the real pricing is. It's so much easier to come down. So now this is full system. You mentioned $5,000 was the item. We don't want to sell partials, but there does happen out there. If you were in wintertime, you're selling a furnace only. Some guys call a system an AC and a coil. Some service techs will sell a condenser only. That, I'm not going to say that was never our business. I would always look at why we sold only one piece, and they turned out to be maybe 5%.
Yeah, let's not go down that road.
They would turn out to be small amounts, but you shouldn't use these factors on just one piece. That's all I'm really getting to. When you're dealing with one piece, You've got to you've got to put a little bit more on these numbers. In fact, my numbers were 5 and 4 when I was dealing with one piece versus 4 and 3. That was all I changed.
Yeah, I'm getting confused already by too many numbers. So let's jump back. So worst case scenario, 33%. You'd really like to have 25% be the cost of goods. What am I looking at for for commission at 25% or versus 33%? And what about installation labor? Because that's also part of what's going to go into what you would call the cost of goods.
Yeah, there are companies that will take their hourly rate, figure out, guess how many they do. We paid a performance pay, so I paid 7.5% of every job, period. Didn't matter if they could do it in 4 hours or 14 hours. It was still 7.5%. Now, I had a manager in that department, and I had some incentives. I knew, so my number was really 10% because I had a manager in that department, and 10% was a good number. Anywhere between 9 and 11% is a great number for your install department. So 10 is a good round number to go with. So 10, I was very happy with 10%.
And you're wrapping in having some sort of supervisor or management in that number.
I am, yes.
Okay.
Just the field
that
label.
Makes sense to me because I've always heard between 7 to 8. But if you're adding a manager in there, that makes all the sense in the world. And his job is to make sure that he pays for himself.
Exactly.
Reduces callbacks, all that stuff is supposed to come off the P&L or go lower.
Yeah. Sure. Go out and handle a few jobs himself when things get very busy can happen as well. So I had a great guy named Johnny that just kicked in. He and Tracy, two of the lead installers, when things got busy, they certainly installed just as much or more than anybody else and did a great job doing it. So I love it. So
David Coker says cost of goods 0.42%. David, are you including in that your commission and are you including in the labor? Yes or no? Can you let me know in the chat? Because if so, then he's priced for a 58% gross margin. And he's in the HVAC business, and that's a fantastic gross margin if you can get it all day long. And he's got a little bit of room if he needs to negotiate, God forbid, or give a special financing payment plan. Not percent margin for cost of goods. I don't really understand what you're saying there, Dave. Maybe you could flesh it out a little bit more in the comments for me. That'd be amazing.
We might be getting sidetracked, and this may be another number. I apologize, but why 0.42? Why not 0.4, David? And the reason is I can actually divide 0.4 in my head, but I can't do 0.42. How do you get point?
Oh, I see what he's saying. Cost of goods divided by 0.42.
Yeah,
so
0.42.
And he's adding a 58% margin by dividing by 0.42, right?
Yeah, that creates the 58% for you and the division.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. I'm getting it a little bit more now. I'm sure he'll flesh it out a little bit more in the comments for us. But thanks for that, David.
How do you divide by 0.4 in your head? How could you do that? Could you do that, Gene? Could you divide by 0.4 in your head?
I can up to a certain number, but then after that, it goes away. I'm pretty good at math.
Oh, yeah. Well, dividing by 0.4, which is what we typically did for commercial jobs versus residential jobs, okay? So 0.4 is actually just a 2.5 multiplier. So all you got to do is 2.5 times that is the same as dividing by 0.4. And again, I can multiply 2.5 times something a whole lot easier than I can divide by 0.4.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, double it and then half, and then add half of it back again. That's all that is. So,
all right. So I feel like I'm herding cats here, man. I got to get back to the numbers, right? So perfect world, 25% for the equipment and materials, 10% for the installation, and what percent for commission based on a 25% cost of goods or cost of materials?
7.5 was our number.
Okay.
Right.
So if we add 7.5 plus 10 plus 25, we're at 35, 42.5. And if we subtract that from 100, you're looking at a 57.5% gross margin.
Right.
Awesome. So
and virtually the same number David just gave us. He was given 42. This number's 42.5. I get it. So incredible.
now inside of the above the line, as we're talking about, inside of that 25% for equipment, 10% for labor, and 7.5% for the sales commission. Are we including permits and stuff like that in that 25%? Or is that coming out below the line?
No, I wanted it above the line, cost of not the business license. Let's say this is the first time you went into an area and you had to buy a business license. Well, that's a below the line item, but the actual permit for the job was an above the line item. So permits would go in there. Most permits run $100 or $200. Every area can be very different. So $100 to $200 was, and sometimes less than the tax you paid on the the equipment that you just bought. So reality of it is it would go in that number, but there's a little bit of cushion that you could do. Now, if you're in an area that permits are brutal and cost a significant amount, then you're needing to add that in. It wasn't something that we had to do because it was minor in comparison.
So it comes in above the line.
It is above the line.
And it would fit into that 25% column.
I would let it cheat over that to I would have another line item for it. But again,
would you bring it directly underneath the gross sales on the P&L?
Yes.
Okay, so you'd have your gross sales minus the permit fees, minus returns, and then you would subtract, you'd have a number there, and then you'd subtract the 25, 10, and 7.5 underneath that.
Yeah, it would still go under the cost of it wouldn't go under the cost of sales or the like a refund of sales. It would be in the equipment cost as a line item right underneath the equipment. So it's kind of like the sub of the equipment.
I got it.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Cool. You'll hear a lot of people talk about key performance indicators, KPIs. So when people come into your business and they ask you what's a KPI, just know key performance indicator. It's just some of these percentages to know. And once you get these set right, you don't have to overstress about them. But a key performance indicator, KPI, that's all we're talking about here. Getting your gross profit. That's a word I love to have. I love to say, but the accounting people will come in and will also call that gross margin. And they'll also call that the what's left of it to be overhead contribution. So if you ever hear the accountants trying to run your company, or when they're, you have an accountant that does your taxes, he'll sometimes intermingle and confuse you with gross margin and cost of, overhead contribution, gross profit. Those all words really are talking about the same thing. How much did it cost to do the job and how much was left? That's all you're really talking about. If cost of goods, it's really all in the same math. What's left is your gross profit. What's left is your gross margin. What's left is what can contribute to your overhead to pay your bills, right? So if you ever have the accounting department come to you, your accountant, people come in to value your company and throw those numbers around, it's the same thing. Not to worry.
Don, what do you say to some of the haters that'll come out of the woodwork potentially on this podcast and say, you're making it way too simple. Pricing is way more complicated than that?
Yeah. Well, we'll often get people saying, I can't charge that because my competitor. Your pricing has nothing to do with what your competitor charges. That's the first thing, is you can't worry about what someone else charges to build your price. Now, yeah, right. How am I going to sell it if my price isn't cheaper than theirs or more competitive. Today on the call,
because you suck at sales.
Yeah, today on the call, the person said, we're already kind of at the high end of the market. Where if you're already higher than everybody else, then why are you trying to only be $1 higher than everybody else?
Yeah.
Be
I once heard
$2,000 higher than everybody else. You're already the high price guy. You're not going to get the job being $10 higher than the next.
Don, you've read more books than me, but I remember one, and you might have read this too. I remember one book that said, if you can't be the lowest price competitor in the marketplace, that there's no advantage to being the second lowest price. You might as well be the most expensive.
Yes, exactly. I don't want to be the lowest priced guy. That's a business model that I just don't subscribe to.
Oh,
I don't want to be.
Yeah, this is for the owners out there. I want you to listen to this very, very closely. This is a quote by Ron Smith. Okay. I'm going to say it slow so you can really get it. And I'm going to try to, this is to encourage you to increase your prices, because your pricing has really got very little to do with whether or not you're selling. Okay. Ron Smith said that a competitor-driven company, one that allows its prices to be significantly influenced by its competitors, can never be better than its competitors. It can't afford to be. I'm going to say that one more time. A competitor-driven company, one that allows its pricing to be significantly influenced by its competitors, can never be better than its competitors. It can't afford to be. Do you want to operate a company where you can't afford to take care of your customers? Or do you want to operate a company where you can afford to pay your guys double time to go out on a Sunday and fix shit even under warranty? Right? What kind of company do you want to own? And then that all comes back, Don, to being able to sell, right? Being able to communicate. And if I asked most of you out there, look, you're $5,000 higher than the next guy. Why should I buy from you? Mm-hmm. You couldn't give me 3 good reasons. You really couldn't. You couldn't give me 3 good reasons that the next guy that walked through the door wouldn't also give me. Well, we do good quality work. We've been in business for X number of years. Blah, blah, blah. Okay.
And it wouldn't matter if you said your price is $500 or $5,000.
It doesn't matter.
It really doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Problem.
And if you'd been through our Black Belt sales training, or if you'd been through one of our mansion events, you would realize that this was the case. Because if you come up against me and you're $5,000 lower than me, when it comes to a piece of equipment, I'm going to destroy you, because I can give you 30 reasons, features, and benefits, reasons to do business with my company. I can make it overwhelmingly clear that we're the right choice to do business with. And it doesn't matter what the money was. Only like 14% of our population buys solely based on the price. And you guys are out there getting your buck. Have you ever run across a situation where another company got the deal and they were even higher than you? Did that sting just a little bit? Is that a wake-up call? Is that telling you something? Is it telling you that you need to get more training? All right, Don, I'm gonna roll this video real quick.
All right.
Hey guys, so I'm gonna roll a video for you real quick. It's like a 60-second video or less. It's just a quick promo for the upcoming event. Let's go ahead and roll it real quick.
If somebody was hesitant about coming to the Lead Ninja Mastermind, I'll tell them this. You can't afford not to go. It's going to change your life, but not only your life, your family's life.
You don't have to wait a year to start making the kind of money that you want to make. Corbin came out of here and within 30 days went from $250,000 to $500,000 in sales. So it doesn't take long as you put in the work.
The
difference between others and this one's a lot more direct and a lot more informative in certain areas to help you overcome certain obstacles, where the other ones are just kind of broad for everybody. Last month, my total revenue for the month was only $5,200. We still have about 10 days left in the month, and I'm already at $13,500.
Yes, I have scripted out for you word for word exactly how to tell them about the money.
If you're struggling to get to that next level, this is the class that you need to be in.
I think my video froze up on me again. Looks like I'm just looking down.
Yeah, I see that. That is the class. There you're moving again. So it's exciting. It's great. We enjoy doing those, but we get more success stories from guys who come to the classes and spend that weekend with us. And it's almost like the light bulb moment. It goes off, it clicks, and they actually start saying, "Oh, you really want me to say these words?" Because a lot of times, okay, I'll just go back and I'll kind of cowboy it. And over that weekend, over that 3-day training session, it starts to click that, no, just say it this way and it will work. And how many times have people struggled with being able to ask about the money level with me? How do you feel about the money? And how hard is that to say until you actually have to say it? You have to look someone in the eye and say it. That's what our training is to get it where it's comfortable. September 29th through October 3rd. I'm excited for it, looking forward. This is a new venue we've never been to. Maybe no one has been to it. It's just a brand new venue, just opened up. So this is exciting to get to go to a new location in Gatlinburg. Gatlinburg in the fall, man, that sounds like a dream. So thanks for putting that together.
Absolutely. Guys, if you need more information on that, or you just want to go ahead and get registered, I think we've got 8 or 9 people that are going to register today. Go ahead and text me. My cell number is 239-848-6533. 239-848-6533. You can also hit us up on any sort of social platform. My team will make sure that you get the information that you need. But this is the cheapest. Like literally, when I first started doing this, Don, when I first started holding live classes, I was charging $5,000 a seat plus all of the hotel and food expenses. I didn't feed anybody, nothing, right? And this one we're able to do for like $33 as low as $33 per participant. So this is like literally 40% cheaper, more than 40% cheaper than I originally was able to do like years ago. And I just want to clarify something. Our next event will probably be in December, and you will not be able to get seats for that price. I promise Jesus, okay? The minimum ticket price when we do it in Orlando is $64.97. So if you ever wanted to take advantage of the training, I promise you it will never be cheaper than it is to do right now. Okay. There are some tickets that are more expensive than that for the group, but if you do it right, you can get it as cheap as $33 per person. You will make that back your first week that the technician comes back and is in the field selling for you. Don, anything else you want to highlight about it? I mean, the first 2 days are, full day long training, at least with both Don and I, a mix of the two of us. And then the third day is an implementation day where Don takes the junior technicians off and makes sure that they've got their foundation built so that they can come back and really start making sales immediately. He'll help them to implement it and get that script to be a part of them. And then I'll take the high ticket salespeople, the equipment salespeople, the roofing, whatever, the big ticket salespeople, and we'll go over some higher level senior stuff in a separate session with myself. Right. So anything you want to include about the event before we kind of wrap this one up, bud?
It is something I look forward to. I enjoy it. If for people who've been there, you can put in the comments you've been to it. You know that we really sit around and role play and get into all the details to make this stuff really something you can go back on that first day back and start actually making money. So it's incredible. So
David says one of our techs, Daniel, will break 40K today in service after going to the event last month. Is that for today? Oh, okay. That's
40K of total revenue. And, what was the revenue before going to the event? Probably not 40K, obviously. We've got, just a few days left this month, but $40,000 worth of probably the tickets that no one was selling anyway, right? It wasn't like it was $40,000 worth of repairs and he went out and got 2 or 3 big compressors. This was surge protectors and float switches and easy start kits, and, probably some indoor air quality, the Breathe Easy products probably sprinkled in there. Daniel's put some effort in. Daniel has uploaded lists. He uploads his day. The more you participate, the more feedback you're going to get from us, and you'll accelerate even quicker. So
Daniel came to the mansion event, and he is in the continuing education program called the Lead Ninja Mastermind. I call it continuing education, but for any of you out there that have ever wondered, do we have virtual training? Oh my gosh, do we have virtual training? So if you want information on that, you can hit me up at the text number that I gave you before. Right. Don, any final words before we exit on out of here? I'm going to do a quick recap.
Yep. Thanks for everything. And again, we're excited to get to train, guys. This is the time of the year where you should get your pricing right. Don't think I'll deal with it this fall because we're making a lot of money right now. You won't adjust your price in the slow season because you'll be too scared. I'll run off what little business I have. This is the time of the year to get your pricing right. Maybe even make those price increases that you've been wanting to do. If you find that you're too busy and I don't have time to get to all the work, raise your price. That is the time. Raise your price when you have a backlog, realistically. And you'll notice that the backlog will actually increase because people perceived quality from that price. Higher price is a higher perceived quality versus low prices is junk. So that was my takeaway. Go ahead, Gene.
Don, you reminded me of a conversation with Terry Nicholson years ago. And I remember Terry Nicholson, I was sitting in on a conversation and he looked at a contractor and he said, I have a question for you, because they were talking about raising their prices. He says, if you raised your prices 10% right now today, how many of your clients do you think you would lose? And the guy said, probably none. And Terry said, when do you think would be a good time to increase your prices? Now, let's just say that guy said, maybe I'd lose 10% of them. Look, I'm pretty good at math. Maybe you're not great at math if you're sitting out there listening in radio land, right? But if you lost 10% of your customers and you increased your pricing by 10%, do you realize that you would generate the same amount of revenue with 90% of the work?
Yeah.
So
work less and make the same. That's not a bad equation.
Most of you probably need to raise your prices 20 or 30 or 40%. But if you're scared, just go ahead and take and raise your prices by 10%. Divide everything that you have by 0.9. All right. Don, I don't think we're going to have them multiply it by 1.1 or something like that, but that's a more difficult number, right? But just divide everything by 0.9. That'll add 10% to your pricing right now. Just do it immediately. All right. I promise you're not going to get the resistance that you think you're going to get. And if you need help overcoming the price objection, and you do, make sure that you find yourself in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, September 29th through October 3rd, and we will fix that problem for you forever. I promise you that the person that walks out of that mansion will not be the same person that walks into that mansion, and I guarantee it.
I truly believe that. We see it all the time. And if you can't wait till October to learn how to handle I want to think about it, or the talk to the spouse, or in this case, your price is too high objection, join the weekly mastermind class. Text Gene. He throws his number up there all the time. Put the word mastermind in and get a little free 30-minute session, 15, 20, 30-minute session, and see if joining now and learning how to handle that tomorrow, the next call you go on, doesn't pay for this trip. You could pay for Gatlinburg with just go ahead and learn how to handle that objection today. So, and you could do that by texting Gene, see if you can get on his schedule and have that conversation.
Amen, man. Guys, if you are listening to us on Spotify or someplace like that, like Apple Podcasts, please remember to run over there and give us a quick review. We love you. We'll see you on Thursday. Have a great day, ninjas. Talk to you later.
Good luck.
Thanks, Don.